On today's episode, we are still working on our Yerfdog spider box. A few more parts that we've been waiting for have come in, so we're going to unbox those and go over what we're going to do with them, obviously. And then we're going to move on with the build, so let's check them out. All right, now I've obviously already opened the box, but one of the things that came in today that we've been waiting for, two things actually came in this box, came from Amazon. The throttle cable, and this is even though we're switching over to a Predator 212, this is a Yerfdog spider box original throttle cable, because we want to still use the same pedals, and where this hooks up and ties in at, this will work perfectly for what we want it to do. We can hook this into the Predator 212 and it should work beautifully. So also on the original Yerfdog, on the axle, the Sprocket favors the left side, or the right side rather, of the buggy. And so you have your sprocket over here, and then you also have a disc where your disc brake mounts up on the right side. In order to install the Predator 212 on there, we're going to have to flip the axle over so that the sprocket will now be more toward the middle of the buggy, so that we can mount in line with the sprocket and the motor together. So when we do that, though, that also changes the position of the brake rotor. It's now going to be on the other side where there isn't a mount. So we're going to have to come up with something to mount this. But I went ahead and bought a brake system here that will mount up and work on the same setup as the original, only we'll just have to, you can go on, I think it's BMI, and buy a bracket that will fit this. This is probably what the route we'll go, and we'll end up having to weld that on the left side of the swing arm so that we can operate our disc brakes. It might take a little doing to figure out how we're going to connect the rod that comes off the brake pedal to actuate this hydraulic cylinder here. So those two things have come in. So we'll be able to advance with those. Also, the main thing we've been waiting on is we couldn't mount our motor, we couldn't even weld our motor plate in there until we had the sprocket, so that we can mount it to the axle to determine exactly where the sprocket's going to be. Is it's going to be in a certain place, and that'll determine where we need that motor to be, which in turn lets us know where to weld the engine plate to. So this is the sprocket. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't even remember. It could be BMI where I got this from. I was having a lot of trouble because the original one off of here is a 31 tooth, and this is for a 530 chain. This is for a big chain. So when I switched over to the Predator 212 and bought a 30 series torque converter, it comes with two sprockets, one for a 35 chain and one for a 40, 41, or a 420 chain. So, you know, I got me one that is a 60 tooth. I was advised by multiple people that going with a larger 62 sprocket would be better for the size of the cart and the torque I'm going to need and whatnot. So we're going to give that a shot. So I got me a 62 40, 420, 40, 41 sprocket that'll work with the chains and the sprockets that I have. But like I was saying though, the problem I was having though is I could find the bolt pattern. Okay, in a 60 tooth 420, I could find the bolt pattern. I couldn't find one with the hole, the center hole, big enough. Okay, and you're probably sitting there going, well, then how are you going to make that work? Well, here's what we're going to do. The bolt pattern lines up. So what we're going to do is we're going to line those two up, put our bolts through here, and bolt it to the axle just like that. We're basically using the old Sprocket as an adapter to get us where we need to be to get it mounted up. So that's what our plan is for that. So once we get that on there, and we'll be able to put the axle back into the swing arm, then we'll be able to determine where to mount that engine plate. So that's what our plan is with the Sprocket. I also have my 40 chain. I got this off Amazon. I got to start writing down what I pay for things, because sometimes I know you guys sometimes like to know what I pay for things, because if you guys are building a project yourself, you know, this is, I literally think this was like 10 bucks. It was pretty cheap. It was on Amazon, and it's 10 feet of 40 chain, and it has 2 links that come with it as well. So we have our sprockets and our chain. And I also bought, don't remember how much this costs, a chain braking tool so that we can size our chain to what we need. And last but not least, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I bought new tires to go on this thing. It came with decent tires. They're turf tires, and I'm going off-road. That's what I'm building this thing for. And turf tires just aren't going to cut it. So, and I like the more aggressive look of these big knobby tires like this. So I went ahead and got a new set all the way around. The front ones have not come yet. When they do, we'll go over that and tell you what I'm doing there too. But yeah, these are 20 tall, 10 wide, for an 8-inch rim. So these are going to fit right on the original rims that came with it. Okay. Now the front tires, when they get here, I'll go ahead and tell you what I'm doing. This thing they all came that way. They came with 6-inch rims in the front with little tiny tires on them, and it looks ridiculous. It looks absolutely ridiculous with a 20-inch tire in the back and this little tiny thing up front. So, I mean, obviously, I had to do something about that. So, I went online, again, I think it was BMI. I'm pretty sure it was BMI. I found the adapters to take it from the 5/8 spindle to match. It has a hub that's going to go on there that's going to convert it to a 4-lug 110 millimeter to match the rear. So they'll all have the same bolt pattern for one. And I also went with a larger rim, an 8-inch rim, and we're putting 18s by 7s on the front, which is going to look so much better. So much better. And yeah, that's what we're doing with the tires, man. It's going to look good. And then, you know, with it being a 410 bolt pattern all the way around, that also means that I can get me a spare tire to mount on the back rack, and then I'll have a spare tire that will go anywhere on the go-kart, regardless of whether it's the front or the back. So, awesome. Okay, so let's pick what we're going to work on next. More than likely, it's probably going to be, we're going to take the swing arm, we'll take the sprocket, get it mounted on the axle, get the axle back in the swing arm, and determine where our motor plate, engine plate's going to go, and get it welded in. So let's get to it. Okay, as you can see, we have our parts up here on the bench. We have our rear hubs. This is our axle, obviously. You can see that we painted the green. I think I've showed that in another video. So, yeah, I've just got tape on the ends from where I painted them. I didn't want to paint on that portion of the axle. So, yeah, on here, this is where your sprocket, drive sprocket, is going to mount. And this is where the brake rotor mounts right here. And then your brake caliper mounts on the right side and operates over there. But this is what we're going to have to do to get that motor, that engine, centered up in the back of the swing arm a little bit better. Because, I mean, I've seen on YouTube where some guy had left it the other way, had left it this way, and just took the Predator engine and he had it all the way over to the right side in order to line up with that sprocket. It did work, obviously, but the problem with that is weight distribution. You want to be centered up the best you can. It just works better that way. If you have all your weight over to one side, it's going to be even more prone to tipping over around a hard corner. So we don't want to do that at all. So, you know, I'm going to put it back this way so we can go ahead and slide on. Well, we can go ahead and flip it over either way. But, you know, this is how it's going to be. And like I said before, that puts the brake rotor all the way on this side. So we'll have to get the bracket more than likely or make our own and weld it up onto the swing arm in order to operate the brakes. So, but what we're going to do here is this originally, see if I can do this without scratching the paint, slides on here, and then that center hole sits up on there like that. Okay, that's why it has to have that diameter hole in there, which this one does not, obviously. So now what we're going to do is slide this one on there. It might be easier to stand this up, I think, is what we're going to do here. Okay, you see that? It had to have that diameter hole in order to sit on that lip. Okay, and I couldn't find one. I mean, man, I tried. I looked and looked and looked and talked to people, and I could not find one. So I went with this one with the same bolt pattern. And like I said before, what we're going to do is slide this down on here. Line our bolt holes up. And we're going to bolt it through this one and through this one. And of course we got to get that lined up on the bottom as well. I should have done that first. That's all right. We'll take this off. We'll make sure you're lined up. Let me go ahead and take that off and y'all can see that lip I was talking about too. See? It has that lip right there that goes through that center hole. It doesn't turn on there very easily, so I guess I got to line them up and then push it down. I think that's good right there, I believe. See if we can get a bolt through there. Yep. Okay, so now she's lined up. We'll put this one back on. And get it lined up. I'm going to go ahead and bolt this on here so that we can get our engine plate mounted up. But these bolts don't protrude through the bottom very much, so there's not a lot of threads for the nut to grab. So I'm going to buy longer bolts. And these longer bolts, nuts and bolts. But to do what we need to do right now, I'm going to temporarily put this on here, and they can be changed out later. So, yeah, they're not grabbing very much, but they're gonna allow us to do what we need to do here. Get this one lined up a little better. Okay. This axle's pretty cold. It's cold here today. Even in here in the shop, I've had the heater running. It's cold. And this was actually sitting out in my truck. Well, one of my vehicles out there that's sitting right now temporarily. So I put these in the back to keep them clean and from getting scratched up until we are ready to use them. So yeah, this thing I'm holding on to, it's pretty much ice cold right now. It has my hand freezing. Okay. You see what we did there? That's what we did right there. Now I'm gonna get a wrench and a ratchet and snug those up, but they're not holding on by much, but that's okay because we just need to use this to locate where they need to go. So that's what we're gonna do, and that's the way it's gonna be though. I mean, because without being able to find one with I'm sure they're out there, guys. I'm pretty sure people are probably telling me right now exactly where I could have found one with the center hole big enough. But I mean, I looked and looked and looked and looked, and I could not find one. So you know, there's really nothing. I don't see anything wrong with doing it this way. I think this will be just fine. So that's what we're going with. Well, let's get us a wrench. See what we can find there. Just 13 on that one and a half-inch on this one. Get these things snugged up. Now I'm not torquing down on these super hard because they're going to get changed out. Again, we're just using this to locate our engine plate. Come on. Don't be stubborn. There we go. Okay. All right, so there we go. Now, I'm going to have to set me up another table. This one isn't quite wide enough to bring the swing arm in and set it down on, because what we're going to do next is pull this tape off of here and slide these on each side and get this thing mounted back up into the swing arm so we can determine where to mount our engine plate. Okay guys, I have a table set up over here in front of my chop saws. Don't mind that, it's just my tires falling. So yeah, I've set up a table over here because the swing arm is just too big to put on my bench and work on. And I cannot work in the rest of my shop because of a piece that was just finished is sitting in my way, and it's a big one. So yeah, this is what I do for a living. Go-karts and stuff like that is not what I do for a living. I am a cabinet maker, furniture builder. So yeah, I'm waiting for that to be picked up. So today we don't have much room to work with all the equipment in that piece sitting here. So today we are right here on this folding table, and we're going to get started on this. So let's do it. Okay, so I ran into a problem that I was a little concerned about but wasn't sure. Well, I don't know, I was kind of pretty sure I was going to end up having to do this. The 60-tooth sprocket has a large enough diameter that it is hitting this piece right here. So we're going to have to cut and remove this piece right here. I'm sorry if I sound funny today, y'all. I'm fighting a cold today. This cold weather's got me messed up. So we're going to cut and remove this piece here, and then I'll have to get some more steel and come across here from here to here and weld in another piece that will accommodate our engine plate. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to go ahead and get this cut out of here, and then we'll grind it, clean it up, and paint it. Well, I probably won't paint it because we're going to have to grind on it to do some more welding to get the engine plate and all that in here anyway. So That's what we're doing. Okay, all I did off camera was take the hammer and knock that the rest of the way out of there. Now we're going to take another side grinder with a flapper wheel. 40 grit, yeah, that'll work. I'll have to change it, I don't know. But yeah, we're going to take a flapper wheel and come in here and climb it up. That's right at the bend right there, so I'm not sure we're going to be able to get it cleaned up 100%. If I spend a lot of time, I guess I could. We'll give it a shot. If not, we'll just clean it up to where it's not sharp and get it painted up.